Welcome to another episode of Sketchy Ideas, the live point counterpoint podcast where we illustrate, debate, extrapolate, and filter through ideas related to leadership, personal development, and business. This is a special Halloween episode, so I put on a costume because why not? We are your co-hosts. I am Michael Rampolla.
I'm Brad James, and I forgot my costume.
Yeah, and this is my costume. And before we get into today's topic is going to be all about rounding the bases for conflict resolution. But first, a word from our sponsors. That's you, Brad.
Go ahead, Mr. Rampolla.
Oh,
okay.
That's me? All right, I'll start. All right,
yeah,
you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're up.
Go ahead. I'm up. All right. Spirit, I gotta take my cat face off if I'm into that. Hold on. I'll do it over here. And I can't here. There we go. Spiriting. Spiriting helps you overcome your obstacles to achieve your most important priorities. There's always something holding you back. More often than not, you don't even know what it is. It's like running into an invisible wall and you don't know why your forehead hurts. Well, this is why you get the outside expertise of a consultant or coach, someone like Spirity, who can help you figure out what it is that's holding you back from achieving those obstacles. Once we figure out what they are, we're happy to help you and we're excited to help you catapult over them. Spirity.
All right. And our second sponsor today is Cream City Marketing, the one-stop shop for small businesses to have a full-blown marketing agency to back whatever their marketing endeavors are, from digital to traditional to data analytics and automation and everything in between. We do it. We are an extension of your marketing. So if that's you as a solo business owner, guess what? You can hire a whole team for essentially the price of one person. So get back to us. That's Cream City Marketing. All right.
Nice job. All right. Now. And we're rolling now. So today's topic is rounding the bases for conflict resolution. Brad, I love the metaphor here. Very timely considering the success last night. The Dodgers
all of our
in the World
Los
Series.
Angeles Dodger fans should be rocking and rolling right now. They're probably not even paying attention because they didn't sleep last night. Because
they're not here. Yeah, they're not here right now. They're not here. It's not for them. It's just for them when they get to watch the recording. Dodgers fans, this one will be for you.
That's right.
I love the way you built out the metaphor on this.
Thanks.
I love the way you built out the metaphor on this, even if it's not timely. It's bonus points that it is. Tell us a little bit about how we came to this idea and why it's important to have a plan for resolving conflict.
Yeah. So everybody deals with conflict, disagreements every single day. So I learned this about 10 years ago from a mentor of mine named Rick Nelson, who explained to me some of these concepts of using passive communication to resolve any conflict or disagreement. And this obviously is very important for a young, exuberant, youthful, young 20, mid 20-year-old guy who's been reliant in sports, and we've been trained on how to just bash through the wall and just there's no wall we can't blow through, right? Including Cream City brick wall. But this was a way for me to conceptualize, hey, this might be a better way to handle those tough situations or tough conversations, either as a facilitator or if somebody is coming to me and is open to having a courageous conversation about something that is wrong. And this was really important to me back then because, in your early 20s, you really don't know what's going on. So there were a number of times where that conflict came up with either bosses, managers, business partners, et cetera. And there wasn't really a path to get through it. And so those relationships either disintegrated or were nowhere near as strong coming out of those disagreements. And I think, at least for me, I think we can all say we've been there. And hindsight is always 20/20. And retrospectively, we all wish we could go back to some of those. And in other times, it also helped to alleviate the fact that maybe those relationships just were not quality, whether they were business relationships or friendships or whatever. So it was one of those things as like a filtering tool that in our toolbox sketchy ideas, this is where this comes in.
Nice. I like that. So, okay, so this is a way for you to slow. I'm hearing slow down because you said passive at the top of that. These are passive communication, which I always hear active communication, active listening, all things that sound like I got to be 100% in on what's happening. But you're actually giving us a little bit counterintuitive idea here, which to your point makes sense. If I've been a very engaged or maybe over engaged or right, there's a way to overwhelm somebody if you're almost too good at listening, where they're not ready to get all the way in with you yet.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole part of this, is that it always, with conflict, there are always two sides, at least two sides to that story that are coming to the table. And if you cannot approach it from a standpoint of straight up receiving it and receiving it fully, seeking first to understand completely before you get to the active point, you're not letting somebody go through those emotional constraints that happen with the lizard brain of fight or flight. And typically if somebody's bringing us to the table, they're upset. And we don't always, in the world that we're going, we're constantly going. And so it just adds stress. So typically people bring the emotions to the table. And the whole idea of this is remove the emotions, get to the point where people are thinking, this just is, it happened, regardless of fault, regardless of emotions, regardless of pain, regardless of any of that. This allows the people at the table to move forward step by step and remove the emotions, to put together action on the back end of it, but alleviate the emotions on the front end to be able to think clearly.
So I've got remove the emotions. So you're yeah, this is mostly for me to I'm going to actively communicate, but I'm going to try to be passive by just taking notes. Removing the emotion, a clear path forward, and then it sounds like I'm just going to use my words, which I know is not accurate for this model, but give me a second. I'm learning something like a mutual commitment, where like we're both in on whatever comes next.
Yeah, I think that's a prime way to look at it. Because you have to gain agreement at each phase of this, and that's why this works. And it's very much if you can't gain agreement, you don't move forward. So we actively are solving it wholly, even if like the whole problem, not just glossing over it. And so then on the outcomes of it, right? If we think about the outcomes, best case scenario, when you have when you have a giant blow up or a giant disagreement that you're trying to solve, is you both leave. You give each other a hug or a kiss, depending on, whatever your relationship is. And you fully understand not only the problem, but why that's a problem. And you have a buy-in action plan, and a plan that both of you have bought into, not consensus, but bought into, to move forward. And that's the part where you're now moving together stronger. You probably that buy-in, if it's with a small group of people or 1 to 2 people, you're now just moving it forward. So it is the best case scenario in any conflict resolution. And most of the time we don't get that, because it always turns into an us versus them. This really tries to go, hey, let's do this together. Let's move this forward. And we're seeking first to understand consistently, and then being understood. First law of leadership. It. Probably my favorite one.
One of mine too. It's in the top 7 at least. So thank you.
Not 8, it's top 7.
Top 7. All right. So take us through this model. So there's a very intentional approach. There's a sequential process. I'm hearing. I liked your point about there's permission at each stage. So start us off. Where do we start?
Yeah. So and just so you're all aware, Michael and I walked through this in detail prior to the show to make sure we were explaining it in a framework that you could visualize and grasp. And we're going to cruise through this, but I promise you, if this is something that people want to dive into more, we'll set up another show to dive into it more. So if we think of this as this is a baseball diamond, right? And again, sketchy ideas, right? So Brad's wonderful drawings are always amazing.
They're always something. Your drawings are sure something, Brad. They're something else.
Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. So if we consider the fact that this is a baseball diamond, pretty good, right?
That's excellent. That beats your United States map. I'll tell you that much.
I'm never going to hear the end of that one. Anyway, before we even get into the batter's box, that means somebody's coming with a problem, right? And so it's instantly, once I step into the batter's box, if this is me, and I'm a right-hander, so I swing this way. So if this is me with my bat, I now am receiving and I am making an agreement to receive whatever the complaint, grievance, whatever the challenge might be. Okay.
Got it.
That's me making an active choice. And I have to do that. And this is where now the pitcher, whoever's pitching this stuff to me, is going to throw the balls, and I can either say, hey, I'm going to swing at it, or I'm just going to take it as a ball or a strike. It doesn't matter. But this is once you make the choice to be here, now you're going to make a choice to swing or not. Okay.
Got it.
Make sense?
Okay. Makes perfect sense. So first choice is I am stepping in and engaging at very least in the observation, like I'm watching pitches, right? So at the very least, I'm listening or hearing to the complaints.
Yes, exactly.
That's as far as I've gone. I'm not swinging. I'm not saying anything about getting on base. I'm here. I'm present. I'm engaged.
Correct.
Got it.
So that means then if you take a swing and you decide to move to first base, I am now actively being open to participating further.
Okay.
So if I end up on first base, this is me now on first base, running slower than I used to, right?
Right.
But
still in the game,
now
Brad.
on first base, I'm still in the game. I'm just showing up. I'm like the old 40-year-old grizzly. Yeah, no. Now I'm on first base. Now I'm actively going to be listening and hearing what it is they're saying and taking an inventory of those items.
Got it.
Is that how we framed it yesterday, right?
Yeah, I like that. So I'm observing. That's one thing. Me taking a swing says, all right, I'm getting in on this, and now we're already starting some sort of agreement, right? Is it okay for me to start keeping track of or basically collecting what you're sharing? Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask for permission to do that, right? So this is me actively going to the person who's bringing a grievance and me going, hey, do you want me to actively listen, or do you want me to just like receive what I was thinking about doing back here before I decided to expend energy on this? So this is me going, hey, let me be aware and actively take inventory or not, right? So that's the choice we're making here.
Got it. And I'm
looking at my notes
verifying and clarifying with the other person on that, which I think, well, anybody who's a natural problem solver has found themselves in this position where they're already solving the problem and they weren't really being asked to. So this is seeking the commitment to engage that part of my brain that wants to solve, or if they say no, then okay, cool, I can shut that down and go back into my passive observation.
Yeah, and that's the point where each of these steps there is an agreement, right? So now that I'm actively taking an inventory of these things, typically, and this is where I began to love whiteboards. Just so you're aware, this gets back into the story. This is the origin story of Brad and the whiteboard. I love it. This is the origin story of why Brad loves whiteboards. Because in an ideal situation, I'm going to do this in front of whiteboards, and as I'm taking the inventory, I'm writing it out. I'm literally writing out every item in the person who's saying them in their words to the best of my ability.
I like it. And a whiteboard is a perfect tool for that.
Yeah, and here's why. Because then they're seeing what they're saying, right? So we're beginning to trigger multiple parts of people's brain, because we know in our brain that when me as the active listener, now making the choice to actively listen, Me writing it down creates understanding in my brain. One. Two, the person who's saying things and I'm writing down exactly word for word what they're saying is seeing what they're saying in words. So it elicits a different response in their brain when they see what they're saying. Okay. So we dive in and we inventory and we just write. And at this point, as the base runner, I'm shutting up. I'm just listening until they're done. And when I hear a blank space, I always take a deep breath and I go, is there anything else? Or if I need clarification, I'll use a phrase of, tell me more. Because at this point, I am seeking really hard to take this inventory and trying to understand the inventory as I'm writing it down.
Taking inventory, trying to understand it, but I'm still just making sure I get the whole thing before I start to do an interpretation.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So if I am so there's the time for like, I don't know, I'm coming up with an archaeologist, but there's the time to collect all the stuff and then there's the time to figure out what I got. And I'm not going to start to analyze and dig and interpret until I have everything, because I might not have the whole story. I might stop digging if I think I'm already there. So collect as much as you possibly can first and then evaluate, which is also the brainstorming, right? The generative phase of brainstorming, the ideation phase should be separated from the evaluation stage, or when I start to filter things back down.
Yes, exactly.
Same idea here.
So
got it.
So all I'm doing here, and what this does is by me going, hey, is there anything else? If they say there is nothing else, now I'm going to second base, right?
Okay.
Now I move
from
first
that's
to
it.
second.
I got it all.
I've got it all. Now here's the deal. On second base, again, we're asking for permission. And the reason we ask for permission here is because we are asking for permission to tell them our understanding of what they just listed out over here in the inventory.
Okay, you got to say that one again. That sounded critical. Is there a question I can ask to make sure I did that?
Yeah. So typically, if I end up on second base, I typically go to the person I'm talking to or the group I'm talking to, and I say something along the lines of this. Would you mind if I repeat back to you in my own words what I think you mean by these lists of items? And we're going to do it piece by piece. And by doing that, it shows that I'm actively listening, and it helps them to understand that I'm doing my best effort to make sure I understand exactly why. Now, this is important because here we end up going back and forth potentially between first and second a lot. Because if I get to say bullet number 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And I go, so if I'm hearing you correctly, this is what I understand. And they say, no, that is not what I understand. Well,
I got to go back.
Now I'm headed back to first base and I'm going, okay, tell me more. So this process between first base and second base really makes an important this is where you as the facilitator or you as the receiver, the passive communicator, is really trying to show the effort of you wanting to understand completely and fully. So other things that you could use are like, well, why? Sure. Or
again,
how does it make you feel?
Root cause, 5 whys, fishbone, insert your favorite tool here. So I'm getting a couple of echoes. I'm getting one echo of another covey, which is go slow to go fast, which you're being very slow and deliberate here, probably slower than you, like you said, than you would be in your natural problem solver state. You're intentionally slowing yourself down. The other thing I'm hearing, stick with me for a second, is a sense of parliamentary procedure. Like is there any more debate on this before we call it to a vote? Is it okay with you if I now tell you what I see, as opposed to just me saying, well, here's what I see. Like I am really, really diligent about getting, a first and seconded agreement at every little move. And I can see how that is important for both me as facilitator, my understanding, and the folks I'm working with to help them through this conflict. I can see the value of that.
If we think about this as a way of one, you're actively outlining for them their inventory of grievances. Two, you're reiterating it back to them in your own words. Three, you're reinforcing it or correcting it if it's wrong. This is like a process, and it's a meditative process that when people get into it, what ends up happening is emotions begin to go away, because now we're looking at words on a board. We're looking at explanation of something back to them, and they begin to understand that, okay, maybe in their own mind, as it continues to hear back to them, just like in meditation or meditative prayer or anything like that, by doing that, you have different insights after you do it multiple times. It's the whole throwback, right? Myelin sheath, you begin to break it down, you begin to wrap it up, and all of a sudden there's a disconnect, and you go, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe I don't need to be angry about that one. Like, this is just me having a bad day and me going, oh, maybe I just need to be like.
When I see it that way, when you put it to me that that's not what I said, and then people, that's not what I said, and people go, no, that's what you said. Oh,
yeah, and this is where this whole process has to be very much done in a passive environment, judgment-free zone. Lay it out there. This thing builds trust. Like, if you execute this well over time, trust it just happens. Okay. So, all right, now, just because I'm trying to be conscious of time, now that we're on second base, right, we understand all these things. Now that I've got an inventory, I've reiterated back to the person or group of people all the things that are important to them, and I fully understand it. Now I'm going to move to third base. Okay. And on third base, I am going to ask for permission to give feedback of sorts. So, and that permission is also very important, because sometimes, again, even though you're asking for permission to get involved here and asking for permission and you're asking for permission, sometimes people don't care what your opinion is, or by putting together an action plan to solve these items, right? And that is the whole premise of that part of it. And if we can look at it from that commitment of being willing to put together action steps, that's a huge deal.
Yeah,
huge deal.
No doubt.
Because now we're at the point of, like, we put this stuff away, and it's stuff that we've talked about. We've got it out there. We've probably hashed it out a lot. Steps, home base, first and second take a ton of time. By now, everybody's kind of worn down and they're like, I just want to solve this thing. Cool. So now we're removing emotions, because now there's so much fatigue on, like, trying to just move the thing forward, that we can actively problem solve with this. And more often than not, the problem solving, we're asking for that commitment of problem solving, because if we ask for that commitment, now we can have the discussion here about, cool, let's solve problem for 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. And so if we do that, there's still discussion here, right? Because my solution might be different than your solution. And so we're also negotiating a little bit. So until we find a solution where there's buy-in that we both buy into, we can't cross home plate. Can't do it.
Till we find a solution. Okay. And it sounds like you even filtered through the things we're going to worry about. So if there was 1 through 7, sounds like we might not even tackle all those things. Was that a part of this process too?
Say that again?
It sounds like we're not, like, once you get here's what I see and here's the feedback, we might not do all of that, whatever all of that is. Because I'm guessing once you start unpacking, there's a lot of stuff. So it seems like once you get to the end here, I can't possibly do or address every single thing that came up, because I'm going to have a full board or wall, so to speak, of all of this stuff. So is there, I guess I missed the base where we decide what to worry about. Is that what it is?
So yeah. Yep. Thank you. So we're going to end up prioritizing these. Tell me if I'm wrong. We said on third base, right? That's what we're prioritizing. Right. Yeah. So we're asking for permission and we're prioritizing.
Here's what I hear. Here's what I'm seeing. Which of these things are we going to spend time trying to solve?
Yes. Yep. So if you and Michael brings up a great point, because quick, like if you think about this whiteboard room that I've got here and you think about all the whiteboards, there are conversations where this will literally take up walls and walls of whiteboards on first base. And unless you're going to sit there for 48 hours straight, there's no way you're going to do it. And by the time you get here and you're trying to prioritize and problem solve, people are too fatigued to even come up with things that solve it. So the biggest thing also about this is that by documenting it, you can always come back to this later. And you just have to go through the steps again, right?
Yep.
First base, second base, third base. You know, it's like a rain delay. So you can't always start on third base again, because the cool thing is after that rain delay, sometimes some more of the items on the inventory disappear because they're solved either based on your prioritization or not. So the other part with the prioritization that I know, when we were talking about this, Michael, you said, how do you prioritize it? Right. And sometimes there isn't an easy way to prioritize things because everything seems super important. So when that happens, you take the simplest one, right? Play small ball. Small ball is always a proven way to get people across home base. So play small ball, go for the easy runs, get the run, build momentum, and rally, right? So
singles and doubles, eventually we score, as opposed to trying to hit a home run out on the first pitch.
Correct. And eventually you'll get a home run and it'll just round the bases and you'll be good.
Now we're good to go. All right. So I'm gaining agreement. I'm loving this. So I'm gaining agreement. I'm regaining agreement. I'm checking in. I might go back. I feel like this is a nice game of pickle where I might be going back and forth. I think I'm on my way to the next base, but I'm actually not yet. But it's important that I keep rechecking that, because this is one of those processes where assumption early, like this is, like you said earlier, you're putting the time investment up front. Free work prevents rework. So you're putting in a lot of time on home, first and second. By the time I get to third and coming around to score, I've got momentum built up on all of that exhaustive, intentional, meditative repetition that I started with.
Yes. Yep.
Interesting. I see the risk of wearing somebody's emotions down to the point of wearing them raw, so to speak. But I also see the value of getting this thing so clinically objective that the emotion has had a chance to fade away. So I imagine that's kind of a fine art.
Yeah, and that's where you as the person who's receiving passively, patience is critical. The other thing that is really critical is you have to remove your personal bias. Because at the end of the day, you're just facilitating a discussion, right? So it doesn't matter what you think about these problems. It doesn't matter if in your head on bullet 5, you're like, oh, you disagree with them because they wanted to go wash their car on Tuesday and you want to wash it on Wednesday. Who cares, right? Like remove any bias you might have and just receive it as this is what it is, because it's a perspective. And that perspective has a story behind it, roots in that story, and that story is going to drive whatever the person who is bringing the grievance to you is talking about. And you have to be able to do that. Otherwise, this whole thing doesn't work. Because if instantly somebody along the way goes, oh, well, you're biased because of this, essentially you're blowing it up because the rest of it doesn't matter.
Right. Got it.
And that's a dangerous place to be. But
so I feel like that's where you're
like you have to
reestablish ground rules as well.
Yeah.
Like that's as I move between the bases, my mode as leader, facilitator, guide of this, my role changes. And I feel like this is one of those times where I would need to make explicit, like I know what I'm doing. I know I'm moving to the next base, the next phase or whatever. I would need to make that move explicit and say, I'm going to shift modes now, or in your words, would it be okay if I now shifted gears, or would it be okay if we all shifted gears from collection of data to analysis? I need everybody to come along and agree that they're ready to move, and they know that I'm moving also.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Which is going to feel like I'm overdoing it, but I'm actually not. I'm actually I can see how somebody early and well, okay, you tell me when you were first learning and practicing this practice, Did you try to skip stuff, try to go fast and stumble and discover why those things are important? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you try and steal a base, 10 times out of 10, you're going to get thrown out, right? Like,
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's why I say when you do this as a facilitator, you're the 40-year-old baseball player who really doesn't have any speed anymore. And think about this. Everybody playing defense is playing perfect defense. So errors don't happen on the defensive side. And you'll get thrown out if you try to steal a base. Or if you try to stretch that that single into a double. It just won't work.
Got it. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And here's the thing, like application of this whole thing depends on that, right? If you use this in your strategy planning meeting for next quarter in that boardroom, you're going to get an inventory of all the concerns around something. Guess what? Now you've built trust because you're facilitating and going, hey, what's the problem? And you're actively hearing it and regurgitating what they're saying back to them. And these are things I know, Michael, you do this. I get called in to do this all the time. This type of work really helps to, one, build rapport on those teams, but it also really helps to make sure that team, even if they have an all-star who's like the visionary, the CEO, whatever, and they're driving it, it really helps that CEO clarify that inventory of thoughts or that vision. And,
absolutely.
And it's really hard to do that if you're the CEO and trying to do that for the team, because remember, you're trying to eliminate bias of your own stuff. So your bias of that stuff can't be included. So I would recommend you always, when you get into those disagreements, you bring in somebody who's trained in this or has done this to be able to help facilitate that stuff.
So basically, there's no way to play this game by myself.
You can try.
Well, but I think
throwing pitches yourself and running back to hit the ball out.
I can do the toss and the hit, but I'm never gonna get right. Exactly, I'm never gonna get out there to field it and also run the bases, which is good because the point you made right there, and I want to catch because I want it to be a throwaway, but because I need to remove personal bias, I can't do it for myself because I'm always too close.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. In order for me to be non-judgmental and not give myself an out or give myself an exit on any of these things, I need somebody else who can play back to me. Here's what I hear you saying. I want you to see what you're saying and do all these things for me and with me because they care about me helping, get through this thing or solving it. But if I know I've tried to do this myself and I've seen others try to do it. And this is where we get stuck.
Yes.
This is where we get stuck all the time.
Yep. This is why coaching is so important for your business. This is why, and various types of coaches, right? But
absolutely.
The best coaches really, really work on this in their own framework. This is the visualization of how I outline it for people as best I can.
Cool.
Because it gives people an understanding of, hey, cool, this makes sense. Especially when you're working in business, you've got competitive people. They probably understand to some extent the game of baseball and how it works and scoring runs, and business is a game anyway. So it gives visualization to the process. So when I go into those rooms, I will lay this out to some extent for them to go, look, ground rule here on base one, we don't move forward until everybody's got their stuff down, right? Ground rule here, we don't move forward until there is a complete understanding of what's happening. Ground rule here, we don't move forward until we all agree that we want to solve the problem. Right?
Right.
There's agreement. The consensus happens on the agreement to move forward, and that's it. The buy-in happens when you cross home base and you score a run.
And at that point, it should be easy because we were all involved at every step of the way, and we constantly had a chance to make sure we were heard and we agreed and nothing got missed. You've got so much good buy-in and momentum at that point. We're fully bought in and we were there for the whole thing. So it's a shared experience and a shared win at that point.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
I love it. All right, we're gonna put a wrap on that. That's fantastic. That's the kind of score I want to make. I want to make the kind of a score where when I cross home plate, like the team got me there and they're there to receive me, right? That classic moment where I hit the plate and everybody's swarming me and ready to go, right? That's the visual that I have of when this works. We're all celebrating that win together because we all really made it happen.
Michael's reliving his little league memories, his heyday when he was at the top of his
Yeah,
game?
no, it wasn't a heyday, but there are memories. There are definitely memories.
So you were the Sandlot kid.
Something more like that. Yeah, I remember my T-ball home run. How about that? Does that count?
There you go. I like
There
it.
you go.
I like it.
All right, let's put a wrap on this, folks. Listen, this has been another episode of Sketchy Ideas, rounding the bases for conflict resolution. Brad, thanks for walking us through that framework. Brad did offer, if you like this, I know I did, I hope you did too, we can do more. We can dig in deeper. There is a process. It sounds to me like there's a process at every step of the game here. That's 5 different things we could go deeper on, either individually, let us know if we can support you, or if you want that to be a future episode, let us know about your favorite base. There you go. Want to give another shout out and thank you to our sponsors, Spirity at spirity.com, Cream City Marketing at Cream City, no, I always get this one wrong, creamcitymarketing.com.
Correct.
Keep it easy. It's the emails that are different. And also you can send us an email at info@sketchyideashow.com. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. And let us know your favorite baseball player from the 1980s. I don't know. Let's see what you got. What else we got? I think that's about it. Voice of God. Anything we forgot? I think we're good.
Hanging today.
Yeah, it's hanging. Hanging fastball from Voice of God, Brian. This has been Sketchy Ideas. Look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Michael Rampola.
I'm Brad James.
And remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. Look forward to doing that with you again soon. Take care, everybody.